All right, so welcome everyone to our Spotlight Success Story series, where we highlight thriving executive professionals who have navigated their career journeys with so much purpose and impact. So today I'm excited to introduce Sheena Chan, a leader whose story of growth, resilience, and success is just truly inspiring. So Sheena, thank you for joining us. So I'd love to start by hearing a little bit about you and your journey.
Yeah, first off, thanks so much for having me as a guest on the show. It's really an honor to be here today. So a little bit about me. I was born in the Philippines and moved to Toronto when I was 7. And all the work that I've done really stemmed from my upbringing in Toronto, not being able to see anybody that looked like me in the media. Always felt like I needed to look a certain way in order to be successful, that I needed to have blonde hair and blue eyes. And it wasn't until my 20s when I dyed my hair back from blonde to my original hair color is where I felt myself and embraced my culture. And in 2015, I was dealing with a lot of confidence issues and wanted to find resources that also catered to Asian women specifically, and there wasn't any. So I decided to just start my podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, as a way to build support and build better representation. So since then, I've interviewed over 800 women on this topic of confidence, mostly Asian women, and it's led me to um, writing books, speaking, just never thought I would write one or not one, but two books for a major publisher, and being able to speak for companies like Meta and NASA. So really just, going out there, showing up, making a name, making a legacy, showing other women that it's okay to show up and be confident. So that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing, so inspiring, and I can relate because being South Asian, I went through the same thing, the journey of like having that low confidence because I was trying to be myself, and I wouldn't get recognized for that, and then working on that self-confidence and really owning who you are. So I can totally relate. And also, I started my own being an author and starting my own podcast was definitely like a life-changing moment to kind of share that authenticity and story, right? So inspiring. And every successful leader faces challenges along the way. So I know you've spoken about, your dedication to closing the gender confidence gap. So what obstacles have you had to overcome in your career, and how did you navigate through them?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is really learning my own worth. It's always easy to put ourselves down, be our own worst enemy, not realizing that self-love and self-care is really important, knowing to believe in yourself regardless of the circumstances. I know sometimes it's easier said than done. Growing up Asian, there's a lot of cultural rules we have to follow, especially as a woman, be in the background, never make any noise. One of the things I really had to learn to let go was the approval of my parents. Um, if you ever saw the movie Red Panda, the in the
Mhm.
beginning, the little girl was like, my parents gave me life, they've done everything for me, and all they ever ask is everything they tell me to do, right? And
Right.
so that's what we've been taught to do, and nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with honoring our parents, but at the same time, we also have to honor ourselves. So learning to push through our fears, letting go of what other people think. I mean, just a lot of unlearning because we grew up in a background where the same thing has been taught day in, day out, generation from generation, and it's up to us to break that cycle.
Mhm. And I can relate, because we had like, I kind of read a post about this, about breaking the generational stereotypes and trauma. And I can relate as my parents, like I love them and I listen to them, but at the same time, like we're not like it's not the traditional path, right? We're all trailblazers and we're here to pivot a path that's different for the next generation. And the fact that you're one of them who's done it and who's like you have a proven track record, right? So I totally agree. And that's like a very important pivotal moment for others to understand that we need to overcome those fears and face them. And that's how we break out of that comfort zone. So amazing. And at this stage in your career, so what does success, or I know you're thriving right now, and that's the whole point of this episode. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, has your definition of success evolved over time? And I know you wrote your book, right? So after that, how many people has it impacted? Like, impacting so many women out there globally.
Yeah, I mean, I think success to me is just really being able to live life on your own terms. I know having the titles is great and all, but really that's all surface level, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can have those titles and at the same time it helps us build our confidence and also bring down our confidence because we feel like we always have to keep up with everybody. So really it's about learning to live life on your terms. Like if you want to go to Costco on a Wednesday, like go to Costco on a Wednesday because
Right.
nobody wants to go to Costco on the weekend. It's a madhouse. And I think we have to learn to live life on our own terms instead of trying to keep up with the Joneses. There's so many people that I see, they
Mhm.
want to live this lavish life, not realizing they're in huge debt, right?
Right.
Or they're saying, I made $30,000 in 10
Mhm.
days, which is great, but people don't realize the story behind the thir what really took the $30,000 in 10 days. It could have been 10 years of like day in, day out to get to where they are today, right? So, um, being okay with sharing like this is how I want to live my life, right? There's
Mhm.
people out there who just want to live simple, and
Right.
that's totally fine. And because it's all about how you want to live, not what others expect of you.
Yeah, exactly. Live life on your terms is great. And I can relate as well because, helping as an executive coach with it's not just life, but even career, like the titles, like people are so focused on the imposter syndrome and they have that. And I haven't like reached a certain level, but it's about what you want and what aligns to you and your values, right? And when it comes to like a career, is it about thriving? What is thriving means financial freedom, right? Financial freedom, just freedom to be yourself in a place that where you're recognized and valued, right? And you're able to speak and own your voice. So absolutely. And that's what's truly important. I love that you talked about that. And so when I'm looking at when it comes to aligning work with values, and really owning who you are and your confidence, looking at the inner fulfillment. So I know purpose and values play such a significant role in long-term success, right? So with your expertise in leadership and self-confidence, like how do you align your work with your personal values and purpose? And how
I
does
mean,
that reflect in your podcast?
yeah, I think for me, purpose is really important because I lead everything with my purpose. Without it, I wouldn't be here today.
Mhm.
Even if people don't know who I am, they love the purpose of what I
Yeah,
do, and so it resonates with them. So having purpose is big. And it doesn't mean it has to fit every single person, right? Your purpose can just fit one person and people can relate to that. People think that they have to have this really big purpose that everyone can fit in. It just, as long as it can fit in one person, that's more than enough, as long as it's bigger than you, right?
Mhm.
And then values, I think, is something that I get from my great grandfather because when he started his business, he also lived by a certain set of values, and having those values really helped him build a legacy.
Yeah,
One of the values that I lived by that he's lived by was persistency and resilience
right.
because life's tough, business is tough sometimes, right? You can't just manifest things. You got to do the work.
Exactly.
And sometimes the work sucks. Sometimes we go through a lot of roadblocks, a lot of rejection, but it's how we persist and keep moving forward is what really matters. And people are always trying to find the secret to success, but really it's like you just have to be persistent as F to
Right.
just keep moving forward. As long as you believe in it, as long as you're in alignment with it, then you keep moving forward because all these people who've been through it went through a lot of rejection, went through a lot of hurdles to get to where they are today. And so I think people sometimes think there's this magic formula,
Right.
but there isn't. Like you just, if you get a no, you move on, right? At least you have an answer than not having an answer. If you're going through a difficult time, think about it, figure out what's the lesson, how can you turn this situation into something good? And sometimes we're in certain situations for a reason. It's either a blessing or a lesson. So it helps us build confidence, it helps us build strength, it teaches us how to solve problems in a different way. Um, and so for me, those are really important because without it, you're not gonna go you're not gonna go out and do the things that you're supposed to do or do the uncomfortable things or do the scary things. So yeah.
No, I totally agree. And it all comes down to alignment and resilience. I can relate, because I learned that from I didn't have a father figure to kind of have a role model to learn from. And that's where I went with my grandpa, right? That he was my role model. And I learned from him like certain values of like discipline and persistence and resilience. And like everyone thinks that whether it's leadership or anything in life, it's just like a shortcut, and especially now in this generation, right? But it's really not like you have to work so hard and it's
Mhm.
going to happen. You're going to have obstacles come the way. And a lot of people have come to me saying, like, Vina, like, what if someone says this about me? What if I get rejected, even for job search? And it's a normal thing, but you want to go back into your purpose. And I think, like you talked about, the why is what really, is the inner motivation that gets you the real success. And that's where purpose comes from with that calling. So totally agree. And I feel like you really touched on a lot of amazing things and the core, success of what confidence is. So if, how many professionals aspire to grow into leadership roles? They have the potential, but they just don't know where to start. So with their vast experience in empowering women especially and Asian or South Asian to take those leadership positions, like what advice would you give to those women and even men if there are men listening to thrive in that leadership?
Yeah, for sure. I think having resources is important, whether it's reading a book, listening to a podcast. That's really important. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to do this on your
Mhm.
own. There's so many different leadership circles, cohorts, organizations that can help you get there. Um, you know, Personal development every single day is important. Leadership is about working on your mindset. And I know this may sound cliche or you've heard it a million times, but mindset is really important because without it, you're not going to go out there and do the certain things that you're supposed to do. Like, I remember when my first book came out, The Tao of Self-Confidence, I saw it in Barnes and Nobles for the first time in Orlando and I showed my mom. And the first thing she asked me was, why is it in the business section? Right? Why is your book in the I'm like, wow, mom, Asian moms
Right.
are savage. But
Right.
people don't realize mindset plays a huge role in business. Like if
Yes.
you don't work on your mindset, like how do you expect to do the things that you're supposed to do, especially when things just happen and you don't know what to do. You have to be equipped, right? And
Hmm.
it starts with mindset. So that's why I say personal development every single day is important. And don't be afraid to reach out to people. I do outreach all the time.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's what people are afraid to do that. I mean, yes, I still get scared. I still get uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong. But also, if I didn't reach out to those people, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have been able to write not one, but two books for Wiley, right? And so just don't be afraid. Just go for it and just take it one step at a time, right? Confidence doesn't
Mhm.
happen overnight. Confident, the results happen from the small daily actionable steps. So go
Mhm.
out there and just take one step at a time, right? Like, let's say you want to write a book. Everybody wants to write a book, but they're like, it's so daunting. I don't know what to do. But if you set a goal to write a page a day for 365 days straight, you would have one full book or two books, right? So just set those small actionable daily steps to towards your leadership journey.
That's great advice. I love that. And yeah, I can, for the book, it took me 1 year. I mean, I was thinking it's going to take like 2, 3 months, but it took me 1 year to kind of really take it seriously, but just having those, like you talked about, small action steps every day, like, even if it's like 30 minutes, like what can I have an idea written down on paper and just being like persistent at it, back to that and be consistent. And all comes down to mindset. I think 95% of success is just mindset. And I keep like repeating that, whether it's like job search or anything, like relationships. And I do agree, like I manifested a lot of my dreams and I was able to thrive because of reaching out to mentors. Like that's how I just went on like 98 miles per hour speed. Like I just really took off. And I agree, because some women I do come to me saying that, like, is it okay if I outreach, or what do I say, or what if I don't get a response? And it comes down to that like imposter syndrome, but at the like what's the worst that's gonna happen, right? Like you talked about like when you reach out. So very important that it's the fact that we have a support system, like, we want to be mentors for the woman who want to like reach out. So excellent advice. And so but before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about your journey or philosophy or how you continue to evolve in both your personal and professional life?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's learning to just show up imperfect. It's okay to make
Yeah.
mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything, right?
Mhm.
And also being imperfect. Like we're all imperfect. There's no such thing as perfection. And I think the more we show up as our authentic selves, the better we become and the more confident we are in our own abilities. I want everybody listening to know you're more capable than you realize. Um, Maybe it's just you need to reframe, like see things from a different perspective, reframe your thinking, find mentors to help you out there, or read books or listen to podcasts like this to help you out in your journey. Like I mentioned, mindset does play a huge role. And once you have your mindset straight, like you become invincible. So Also, one of the things I talk about in my first book is trauma, right? Trauma, it plays a huge role in our lives. And if we don't find ways to work through it, it's also going to hinder our leadership in our business. A lot of people ask me, how do I build confidence? What people don't realize is that instead of asking, how do I build confidence? What is the root cause that's stopping me from moving forward? And sometimes it can be your trauma. So especially in Asian culture, it's
Yes.
not just our own trauma, it's intergenerational trauma, historical trauma. And so we have to learn to be aware of them and learn ways to heal from it. So
Exactly. Exactly. And that's how you shape the next generation, like the next future. And yeah, that's great. I love that. And yeah, especially with like South Asians or Asians, I think we have that conditioning that a lot of people just kind of put that to the side and like, thinks that it's gonna get better, but you have to like overcome that and heal. And that's where like authenticity comes from. I see that in a lot of Asian women that it's just they're holding back. But I think it's nice that you're kind of a role model, that you're kind of leading by example, saying like, hey, it's okay to be yourself and be imperfect. So I love that. And yeah, so Sheena, this has been an insightful conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom. And I know that our audience will find so much value in your journey. So wishing you continued success. And we'll love to know for the audience, where can they find you?
so sorry, there's like an alarm going off and I'm trying to like
No worries.
uh if you can hear, I'm so sorry. They just like came out on it out of nowhere.
I can still hear you. I can't hear
Oh,
you very nice,
you
but yeah,
can't hear? Okay, okay,
yeah.
awesome. Well, Tina, first off, thank you for having me as a guest. And for anyone who'd like to connect with me, you can check out my website, sheenayapchan.com. You can also pre-order a copy of my upcoming book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, Indigo. You can get my current copy of my current book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, on the same platforms. You can check out my podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major podcast platforms. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. But if you forgot anything that I mentioned, just Google Sheena Yapchan because I'm the only Sheena Yapchan on the internet. And also on my website, there's a free self-confidence personality quiz that you can take.
Yay. I love that. Thank you so much. And yes, do follow Sheena, who everyone's listening. And thank you so much for tuning into the Spotlight Success Story, everyone. So stay inspired, and we'll see you next time.